Great, for your great presentation, a really brief, clear presentation of EIT Food think tank and the activities and your mission. Thanks so much. So I think we could continue with a discussion. I think I will invite some of our other guests. So I think you could sit, wherever is convenient to you. Yeah, so we have a great panel here. We have, so I will present all the members of our panel. So first of all, Vytautas Abukauskas, Vice Minister at Ministry of Agriculture of Lithuania. We also have Ieva Valeškaitė, Vice Minister of the Economy and Innovation of Lithuania. We also have Seth Roberts, the Good Food Institute Euro Policy Manager. Please, welcome. We have Simon Mas, Chair of the Smart Sensors for Agri-Food S3 Partnership. And we have Mirva Lampinen, VTT Co-Creation Manager. And sure, yeah. So Ms. Maurice mentioned that the change is necessary. It is really important. We should do something about it. On the other hand, we always hear that there are some regulatory challenges. We talk about novel food regulation, which could be kind of an impediment for the development of some products. So maybe let's delve a little bit into the status quo of the situation, and I would like to ask maybe Mr. Vytautas Abukauskas to tell a few words about what is the regulation about and what concerns you and the Ministry of Agriculture in this regard.
Taip, sveiki visi.
Good afternoon. In the EU, we have a regulation on novel food products, and let's say a lab-grown product has to meet certain standards and regulations in order to be recognized as a food product. And the EU Food Protection Service accepts applications. As far as I know, so far it hasn't received any applications, but globally this topic is becoming more and more relevant. It is expected that soon applications will be filed and certain regulations will be put in place for such novel foods to be regulated.
Brief introduction of the status quo situation. In order to a little bit involve our great audience today, I prepared a few slides. So I have a few questions to you. If we could actually vote for one of the questions, if you go on slide.com and enter Agri23 main, this would be great. Yeah, could we see maybe some of the So I actually focused on the question, and it would be great to hear. Yeah, we already have actually someone already responding, one response. So my question is about the cultivated meat and your thoughts about the policy direction regarding the cultivated meat products. I'm not sure whether we can actually make it visible. Let's try maybe, or ask. Probably not. Then, oh, okay, but I have actually responses. So I will tell you, if we do not have visuals here, I will tell you what is happening right now. So basically, the question is, do you consider cultivated meat to be the proper policy direction to focus on if we want to tackle environmental challenges? So the first response is yes, cultivated meat should be prioritized area. The second, yes, yet cultivated meat should be considered as only one of the alternative food sources. And the third one, no, cultivated meat is not an efficient food source. So my actually, I was really hoping to know your opinion about how many of you will respond no in this regard, because we usually come to some novel things really excitingly, not really considering some possible efficiency concerns. And here we have 27% actually responding no, cultivated meat is not an efficient food source. Now 33%. So Ms. Maurice, you will need to advocate more. And now, actually, I will turn to the advocate, Seth Roberts. So could you, from the Good Food Institute, maybe you could provide some additional argument for the lab-grown food sources, and just to argue why it should be considered as really the priority alternative in terms of food diversification.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, very happy to. So just as a disclaimer at the start, the Good Food Institute, again, is also an NGO. We're not industry funded or anything like that. So we have a kind of, I guess, an impartial view. But I do still think that cultivated meat and cultivated seafood should be treated as a priority alternative protein. I think within the nexus of other alternative proteins, stuff like precision fermentation, plant-based foods as well, they all play a role. And I guess that it really boils down to three things. The first is the kind of environmental arguments around this. Fairly consistently, the evidence shows that cultivated meat requires significantly less land, which can be used then to free up land for other agroecological practices, organic farming, all of that kind of thing. It's a really strong argument for cultivated meat. When you consider the amount of calories that have to go in to traditional livestock to what you get out, cultivated meat also performs very well on that. And when you produce it through particularly with renewable energy, the kind of energy inputs that are required are actually relatively small as well. So there's a really strong environmental argument. There's a huge study, which I won't butcher now, but it's called CE Delft, which kind of understands the lifetime kind of economic and sustainability criteria for cultivated meat, which is well worth a read for those who are not yet convinced about the potential of cultivated meat on the kind of environmental grounds. The second thing as well is that I think sometimes when we talk about cultivated meat, we view it as a kind of disruptive technology, something that is kind of pitted against traditional farming methods, something that's seen as kind of it's either farming or cultivated meat. And the point that I would like to make on that is that I think we at GFI very much see cultivated meat and actually all alternative proteins as something which is supplementary, which contributes to the wider food system, a lot like EIT food, actually, in that sense, that it's one arrow, I guess, in a wider quiver. There can be ways in which you can bring farmers into the value chain, which are really productive, whether that's using side streams from traditional animal agriculture, whether it's about having, fermenters on farms, that kind of thing. So I think there's a social argument as well around why cultivated meat and alternative proteins are actually necessarily kind of beneficial. And then the third thing I would like to talk about just quickly is the economic potential. This is going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's projected by 2030, 2050. The growth rates are also really high there as well. So there's a really strong economic argument for governments investing in cultivated meat, alternative proteins, and looking to kind of reap the benefits, I guess, domestically as well. So I think summarizing across those three, I guess, nexuses, I would say that there are strong arguments, I guess, for alternative proteins, particularly cultivated meat.
So you're basically looking into like it is a long-term, forward-looking perspective. So this is why we should actually take into consideration the existing R&D status and then do more because we think about some future.
Exactly. I think that's exactly it. I mean, if you look at how we're going to feed the world, whatever it is, 9-10 billion people by 2050, something needs to change, basically. The current system of animal agriculture it's not going to work when we get to that kind of scale. There are many different ways in which we can tackle that problem. Again, I think alternative proteins is just one of them, and it should be considered in a wider holistic practice that also includes agroecology, methane reduction, all of these kind of things. But I do think it is a critical step, basically, because of the land use gains you get, because of the better environmental footprint and that kind of thing.
Yeah, thanks so much for your remarks. And then again, while technologies are actually disruptive and they change the way we act, and it is always risky to amend the laws, amend the regulatory framework, and the policies should be really sensitive in terms of how we regulate the society. And in this context, I would really like to ask Ms. Ieva Valeškaitė, Vice Minister, about what actually maybe the Ministry of Economy and Innovation considers the topic of lab-grown foods as kind of a subject of a regulation right now.
Sure, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for having me today here. I can't remember the last time, sincerely, when I was so excited to be on the panel, because I think that this topic is one of the most interesting and one of the most futuristic we have ever spoken, even in this palace here. So the Ministry of Economy and Innovation looks at novelty food as a part of a biotech sector. And as you know, we have a strategic goal in Lithuania to increase our high value-added activities to 1/5 of our GDP, and biotech should be equal to 5% of our GDP by 2030. When we started, we had 2.5%, so we have to double it for our economy to become resilient and that of the higher value added. So we look into novelty foods as a part of course, biotech sector, as a high value added sector, and of course, what we also do consider, and we always have to keep in mind, is competition. Maria-Louise already mentioned that she doesn't want all novelty foods to be sold only in US market and for US companies and other countries to reap the benefits of these transformative technologies. And we do think in the same way. I would like to be very sincere with the audience. When we started discussing if there could be some work done according to preparations, because we are still in the early preparatory stages here in Lithuania. After 2 weeks, we got a call from colleagues saying that Estonians are already also have inquired. So we are ahead, two weeks ahead, Estonians, but that's a joke, really. But we must understand that the competition is tough, and it will be tougher in the future. 5 days ago, Bene Foods, Czech company, has been approved by EU for pet food production, lab-grown meat production. So we have 2 lessons here, that the competition is fierce, and it will be even more fierce, and that small countries, Eastern European countries, they can put themselves on the map if they really want to. And the Czech example is a good one, I think, here. Regarding the regulation, we are working in the ministry with regulatory policies in a broad way, and I think that I heard that's not my idea, but I think it's a very good one. When we look into future technologies, we as people tend to be super cautious. We tend to be very sensitive, and we are looking into all the risks. But we do not apply the same lens to our existing technologies. That is said, for example, take in mind a hydrogen power plant. I'm sorry, I don't know how it's called. Like we have petrol stations and hydrogen stations. And now when we are discussing, should we have those hydrogen stations built in the cities, a lot of cities and a lot of countries that are actively pursuing this technology, they are looking into all possible problems that can be caused. And of course, there are problems, and we must look into this very seriously, but we must apply the same lens that we are applying to our existing technologies. When we are, right now, we have all, you know, all the procedures for building a normal petrol station, but when we are thinking about future technologies, we are trying to be super cautious here. So I think that's what's very important, that we regulate, we try to cover the concerns of the public, concerns of scientists, but we shouldn't be regulating the novel sectors. And that's not only about food, that's about everything. in a stricter manner than we do with our traditional ones, because this is how we hinder our competitiveness and this is how we hinder our performance.
Okay. Thank you so much for your remarks. It's really important to hear the approach of the ministry on that innovation and the importance of it. But it's so optimistic now from you. I should be now the devil's advocate in this regard, because you are so excited about it. So now I should speak about the risks. Someone should actually speak about the risks. It's not that good, isn't it? There should be something bad about it. We should speak about it. So I really want to some of you who actually already try to enter into a Slido to maybe, there is even more skepticism, by the way, about cultivated meat after you speak. So optimism is not increasing, unfortunately. 38% now think that no, it's not the way we should go forward. So now I would like to talk a little bit about the risks. So 1 second, I will turn on the other question, and this is the question about the concerns that you kind of feel about the lab-grown foods, and I included into the questionnaire again on slido.com. Economic impact. So we have a disruption of traditional agriculture industries. Then we have health effects, meaning unknown long-term impact on health. Then we have affordability, expensive initial production costs, and then I included also environmental impact, energy consumption, resource use, and waste management. And actually, I haven't included that the option. I don't think there are risks, because I think we should. Because someone should be devil's advocate in this regard, so please indicate some risk. Yeah, thanks so much. So at this moment, so we have competing health effects and affordability, actually. So talking about food safety, it would be really interesting to turn to Simon Maas, about who is chair of the Smart Sensors for Agri-Food S3 Partnership, to a little bit delve into the technical details that you work on, to talk about how smart sensors actually are being utilized in terms of the quality and food safety of lab-grown foods. If you could develop this subject.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for having me here. First of all, I'm a big fan of technology and digital solutions and automation. And I'm a stainless steel enthusiast. So I really love what we are trying to do, or what we're actually doing right now, with creating food in our laboratories. And I think that some of the concerns that we are speaking about here, especially the one on health and affordability, are actually the two that we cannot answer right now, because we don't know. We have to eat it over a few years, and then we can see what the effects are. So yes, it's natural that we have these concerns, but again, as already was pointed out, we can have the same concerns about food we are eating right now. And affordability will increase immensely if we start producing lab foods. That's obvious as well. So to me, the more interesting ones actually are the environmental impact and the economic impact to talk about, because I think that, although Seth already pointed out some points, I'm not so sure that we have the full view of the potential environmental impact of lab-grown food. And I think we should dive into this more in the next decades, because in my belief, the technology will get there. I have big trust in our technology, and we can create what we want to create here. And we have to do it safely, and we have a lot of technology that will make us able to make sure that it's safe and that it's good for us. And there's another risk that I just heard mentioned here, is that we as Europe are competing with countries outside Europe. And to me, one of the biggest risks as Europe is that we will start competing with each other. So that it will be Lithuania competing with the Netherlands, Estonia, and Germany on getting to the point where we can safely and affordably and environmentally friendly create the food we need in this puzzle. So I think really we should start uniting on this topic more and start collaborating and not competing as countries or even regions.
Okay. Could you maybe develop also, these are really interesting remarks, really that topic that reflects that we already started to talk about the competition of countries, of the regions. Could you tell, based on your experience, what are you doing in this regard? Like talking about the safety concerns. What is actually this smart sensors element that you use, and how could you apply within the topic?
What we do within the Smart Sensors for Agri-Food Network partnership as a whole is not only focus on lab-grown food, but it's on the whole food production actually. Yeah. So we try to implement new technologies into the full food production system, creating solutions for better food safety control by using more sensors, inline sensors, so we can really measure pollution or certain products in real time, so that we really know what is going on and we can really act on if something is going in the wrong direction. So we have a much better view of what we actually are producing, that is safe, and we can check it throughout the whole value chain.
Okay.
And of course, these technologies are usable to grow food in a lab as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Simon Maas. And I would like to turn to the actually point that you made, that environmental impact is also one of those concerns that we cannot tell precisely, but we probably should think about it. Let's take a look of how is our slider going on. So still health effects are number one consideration, affordability second, and environmental impact third. But still, let's talk a little bit about environmental element. And in this regard, I would like to turn to Mirva Lampinen and ask about the context of sustainability and reducing environmental impact in terms of lab-grown foods, if we compare it to traditional food sources.
It's awesome to be here, and it's always the worst place to giving this answer at worst. So first, I would actually want to correct a couple of things. We shouldn't actually speak about lab-grown food because this food is going to be produced in similar factories as the rest of the food that we are eating right now. So basically, we are talking about huge breweries. So technology is actually similar. The other thing I would like to a little bit elaborate is that we are not just talking about lab-grown meat or fish. This is actually a huge amount of things what we can grow in this methodology. It's not just that we are trying to mimic the meat. We can grow actually any kind of lipids, proteins with this technology. So we cannot be thinking this too narrow. We can use this technology with a lot of things. And for that, when we are talking about the environment and the sustainability, as a VTT, which is a technical research center in Finland, we have done research about this topic now almost 30 years. So we have quite a lot of data behind us. And we have done the calculations, we have done the techno-economical calculations, and also the handprint and footprint calculations. And it seems that this can be done a really sustainable way. But it needs a lot of new thinking. So when we are talking about how our system from the farm to fork is actually now working, we still have a lot of sort of like empty places where we are having the food waste, or we are not able to close the loop when we are talking about this full circularity food systems. And that is where this technology is actually the places over there, that we can have those side streams which we are not now using properly, a really efficient way. So, because it doesn't make any sense that we are actually growing sugar in the fields and then feeding that for these bacteria which are growing the food. We need to find like a different sources for that sugar. And we already have these amazing startups which are figuring that out. We are having this Estonian company, Äijö, which is making lipids out of sawdust. And there is only limitations where no limitations where we actually can find those sugars for this technology. But I'm not saying that we are not there yet. We have a lot of things that we have to figure out. But I also see that there is a lot of possibilities what we have to find before this is actually sustainable technology.
Okay, so thank you so much. You mentioned actually that startups could be the source of innovation, and this is where we actually look for the second step that should be done in this regard in the market. And Simon Mas also mentioned the importance of cooperation, actually more than discussing about our differences and what should be some negative impact. So maybe could you tell a little bit about the importance of co-creation in food innovation, to tell a little bit more about how do you perceive the importance that actors actually cooperate in the field?
I can actually
continue. So I would like to ask you, and then maybe...
continue with that topic. I have been running the Accelerator program now 5 years, which is based on that idea that we are created this collaborational model where the corporates, research and startups are working together. And that has shown that there is no other way that we can actually proceed. Those startups which are capable from the beginning actually work with the corporates are the most successful ones. Because the startups are not able to grow them at their own. They need this support, they need the model, they need also the pathways to actually how to create their business model for the future. So I haven't seen single startups which has been able to proceed without the collaboration and without the collaboration models.
Maybe...
I can only agree.
Yeah, okay.
No, but really, I think that there's a lot of initiatives going on this topic, and the main thing that we have to do right now is to try to join these forces and to make sure that we remain a step ahead, or at least that we remain in the top to be able to solve this incredible, difficult puzzle we have in feeding the world population.
Yeah, that's important. Really,
yeah, and just to jump in on that as well, I think the collaboration has to go further than just between businesses, between startups, between corporations. It has to include policymakers, regulators, academics. I mean, one of the questions that always gets asked is, how are European regulators going to regulate these new foods? Actually, the best way of doing that is by talking to companies, by building in that collaboration early on in the process. Companies are always going to know much more about their products than a regulator is, particularly when we're talking about these novel foods which are new and they present their own challenges and risks and all of that kind of thing. So by building in that collaboration right from the start is actually the only way we're going to make any progress on it across kind of commercial but also policy regulatory issues as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your insight. So we hear that the importance of cooperation mentioned, and so I would like again to turn to Ieva Valeškaitė. What more should be done now in order to increase more cooperation and more startups growth in Lithuania?
I think it was already mentioned in the opening presentation, the triangle of what do we need. So of course, the funding issues, private capital and public capital as well, cooperation. What we are looking into is, of course, building a talent pool. What is very important, because it all starts with a talent. There's no startup if there's no one to start it, yeah? So for us, I think what we are looking to, how to promote that cooperation with academia most of all, because we have a great Kaunas Technology University that already has a very advanced food lab, and they are doing very innovative things here. So what we would like to do, we would like to open that cooperation with the public-private sector. And of course, we would like some of our academia and our students to go and learn from the best, to go and learn from those countries that are most advanced in the sector, because we must not forget that some of these things that we are talking as absolute future here are already on the shelves in Singapore. So we really must do more to be at the forefront here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I guess, Ms. Maurice, you also have some experience, and could you maybe share the view based on what you know from your experience at EIT? Food. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was indeed said a couple of times already this morning as well that collaboration is obviously one of the key areas that if we don't do it, then we will not be able to go pretty far. There's also one element that I think is important to recognize, that if we want to do something that is reaching the future, we cannot only, for example, focus on big food industry companies, because they have their own obviously rhythm. So that's where we absolutely need the input of startups, and actually valorize, not only to, let's say, support them in a very early stage, but rather in the scale-up stage. Okay. And this, I know that this has been one of those, let's say, bottlenecks as well in Europe, in terms, well, not Europe, well, in many countries, though, that we seem to be very good in supporting the co-creation in a very early stage. And then when actually comes the moment when they should be shifting into more scale-up, it is always much more complicated. So there's probably a degree of maybe better understanding and better definition on when, because we tend to talk about startups, right? Yeah. And there's all kind of startups, and well, it isn't really true. There are very early stage, and then there are those who are progressing, and then those scale up. So, and all of them have value, because we cannot know from the beginning that who's going to be those who will be able to actually scaling up. And in scaling up, there's another element there, and that's probably also where, again, the co-creation, but in another form, is very crucial. It is obviously from finance. It is also from the infrastructure in the companies, but equally, basically the whole economic system that should actually pay attention and be interested in these areas. So they are a little bit left maybe alone in some ways, where actually the support, and I'm not only talking about investment. Investment obviously is crucial, it is really important, but there can be also like things that are related indeed to infrastructure, where policymakers and, for example, the local regional governments should also think about that. Okay, what are those future companies that we want to attract? And that's also one form of a collaboration and co-creation at that stage. So there are elements there that we don't necessarily address, but they are crucial for the success.
Yeah. So now we're actually tackling how to induce more cooperation, more startups, to create the environment that could allow us to have more companies working in the field. But then my function is to be devil's advocate in this regard. So we actually have something in the market. So traditional agricultural companies and entities that are acting, and they might not want some new competitors in this regard. So I maybe, yeah, some of you, maybe Yeva Valeškaitė, and then, yeah, someone else.
Sure. I think what has been said about cooperation and finances, we usually forget that one very important thing is the demand side. And of course, the demand side comes from education and us here answering all of these questions and concerns. For the users, we are not here to answer the concern of safety, for example, or health aspects, because I don't believe we have medic on the panel, but maybe we have, sorry. But from, for example, the disruption side, the technology disruption side, I think that, of course, when we are talking about lab-grown meat, a lot of, for example, or lab-grown proteins, a lot of the public thinks about that there's some crazy professor who's growing the cow or a pig from nothing, from air, yeah? But that is not true. And for example, I believe that many concerns, even here from the audience or from other audiences, come from that. They think that it's going to be a technology that, for example, kills off the agriculture, which is absolutely not true in many cases of the novel products. We are talking about hemp. We are already a bit late to that train in Lithuania, but we can, like other products, for example, other proteins are made from agricultural products. Yeah. So they don't have that sort of bad disruption in many cases in agriculture, because you still need agricultural products to produce the protein. Yeah. So therefore, Lithuania, for example, or other countries who want to jump in the train, they can use the advantage, and if they are forefront, they only can sell the same product for a higher price. And that maybe some colleagues can add more to that, but I think that what we are always, or a lot of us are scared that it's going to disrupt the economy, it's going to disrupt agriculture, but that's not the case in many, many areas of proteins.
Yeah.
Yes, if I could continue that, I think that this is not that way. We are not disrupting agriculture, actually, because this is part of the agriculture. Technology is not able to live without agriculture. We are just trying to answer the question that this planet needs more food. We have to be more precise how we are using our resources. So this is filling a gap. We are creating something new to be better in this field. So because this is new, if of course the consumers are a little bit hesitating about it, there's, as you were saying, there's also issues with the health, which we hasn't been talking that much yet. But we have to remember that those proteins, what we are actually creating over there, are precisely the same as we are eating right now. There is no difference. But of course, we have to make sure that they are safe. And then we have this regulatory hurdle, because EU is so strict that we have to be able to really prove that they are healthy for us. And everybody, I think, in this panel are agreeing that that has to be done, but should it be faster? Because now it's taking way, way too long time. As Marja was saying, there is already those products which has been created in Europe, in Singapore. One of our spin-offs, which is Solar Foods, is actually selling now ice cream in Singapore, which is made, proteins which are made out of thin air. So we have the future already. We are just not able to use that progress, what we have done in Europe, at Europe.
Yeah, I would like thank you so much. Maybe Vytautas Abukauskas have some views about the traditional agriculture versus the innovations that we're talking right now.
Yes, I believe that the consumer will say what they want, whether consumers want traditional meat, and I believe that there will be some people who will say that this is the way I was raised and I want to eat traditional meat. On the other hand, unknown things provoke fears, and if people don't know how products are grown in laboratories, they are afraid. However, livestock farming is very polluting. When we talk about growing meat, we sometimes forget that we need grass and we need biodiversity for that. So traditional agriculture might shrink in the future because people will choose innovative things, but still there will be those who will prefer conventional foods. And we need land to be able to farm livestock, and I don't think that those new technologies will cause many problems.
Because it seems that the difference, for example, in terms of costs are so huge right now, and should we really force the mass production at this point? This is really a question, isn't it? Like really, sure, we're now speaking about innovation side, so we should think about the alternatives, but is it the right moment actually to really have regulatory framework to actually start this production? So I'm just wondering, maybe some of you have take on this. So what is the moment when we should consider mass production as yeah, please.
So the mass production is not going to be happening in several years yet. So we are sort of a preparation phase right now. The technology is still a bit raw. There is, as I was saying, there's question marks also how we are able to scale it up. So it's not going to be happening in a couple of next years. It's actually taking time. So it's also giving us the possibility to adjust how we are working right now. This is not something that we have to be doing like in a hurry, and the disruption is happening in a few years. This is going to be taking a decade. That's my personal guess.
Yeah, someone else maybe. Yeah.
If I can move on that, hearing this panel, and as a strong believer in regional innovation ecosystems, I think that a good question for us as a group here today would be what would happen if we would take the policy advice from EIT Food on this topic, gather regional innovation ecosystem leaders, like Mirva is one of them, and they also have an international outreach, of course, and you know them as well, get policy advisors or policy makers or even public funders on the same table and say, okay, let's not wait for the EU to come and to accept our policy, but let's just start bottom up. We can start working and we can find probably several regions, countries that are willing to start investing in a joint agenda where we can really join forces, help startups in our own regional ecosystems to grow, to proceed, to work on a technology to get it to a scalable place, but also work on activating consumers, educating young people, on what the benefits of this new food, not calling it lab food anymore, sorry. Yeah. Sorry that I did that. This new food that is an important piece of the puzzle that we need to solve. So my call for today would be, can we do this? Can we start a discussion together, a group, where we start, okay, let's just roll up our sleeves and start working instead of waiting for everyone to be at the same place at the same time with the same strategy. And let's hope that everyone gets on board.
Very encouraging. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, Vice Minister of Agriculture mentioned consumer awareness element when he was speaking about the products, and so I would like maybe to turn to Mr. Roberts right now. So there are some issues. And you also work in this field, and there are also some ethical considerations that could we again discuss a little bit. So could you provide your take on the question of consumer awareness? So what is the issue and how should we deal with it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing to say with consumer awareness is that it's still relatively low in comparison to other foods. You know, the food, talking again about cultivated meat, precision fermentation, these kind of products, again, I won't use the word lab grown either, which is my mistake. But like, ultimately, these products aren't on the market yet in the EU. So consumers haven't come into contact with them. Consumer awareness is therefore relatively low. They might have heard about them. They might not understand exactly what the reality of the products are. The first step, therefore, in communicating about the potential benefits or the potential risks of these products is actually, you know, foundational, understanding, communicating actually accurately what these products are, what they're not, when they might come to market, all of these kind of things. And then from that point, I think you can begin to build a more cohesive narrative, which is these are the opportunities, these are some of the challenges they might pose, that kind of thing. So I think that's the kind of baseline. And then I think in terms of you mentioned the ethical side of things, I think we, I think, as GFI, are quite well placed to think about these things as an NGO. I think there's a couple of points that I'd make here. The first is that at the moment, as a startup-heavy sector, there is a degree of kind of consideration around IP protection, proprietary information, that kind of thing. I would just echo the comments we've had earlier about, collaboration. Again, it's sounding a bit cliched now, the amount of times I've said it, but kind of working across companies and working across different groups and trying to make sure that, as much as possible, we're not trying to solve the same problems. We're not trying to duplicate processes because we want to get to the commercial exclusivity first. I would really strongly advocate for people to work with policymakers, NGOs, and companies to work with each other to make sure that we're in a situation in which we're not reinventing the wheel. That would be one of the things I would say. And the second thing I would say is just, I guess we've also talked again about the kind of farming question. It's not shying away from these problems, these kind of, not problems, questions. There are ethical considerations around what the impact is going to be of a disruptive technology like alternative proteins. So it's actually potentially using public funding to begin to research what the options are. How can farmers contribute to the value chain? How can we increase on-site production of alternative proteins in existing agricultural facilities? Those kinds of things are not beyond the realms of possibility for us to begin research on right now. And if we have these worries or these considerations which are at the more societal kind of ethical level, there's no better time than now to start thinking about them and start actually commissioning research on it, understanding it, working with people, bringing them around a table and getting this conversation going now is what I would say.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I would like to take an opportunity and to actually hearing the encouraging words actually by you and by Simon to startups to actually to try to engage into the activities before we wrap up a session. Could I ask all of you to tell a few encouraging words to a potential startupper who might be willing to go into the sector, but it doesn't feel like it is the right time. Maybe just a few words, encouraging words, and few arguments based on the field of your competency. If you could, some of the words. What the person who is actually willing to go into the field, but maybe it seems a little bit too far. And what could you say that? Yeah, this is the right moment to go. Yeah, if you.
Well, I just start and say simply that it's really important to be, obviously have the vision and the view and the idea and drive it. Then second thing is that it's really important to have a very good support group or stakeholder group around. Mm-hmm. And I would say that don't look for just obvious. Go beyond obvious and try to see that what is there out there that will actually help you to reach out that kind of a dream that you have about the future of a company that or startup or product that actually you really want to create and don't give up. Yeah, and then come to Lithuania and make this sandbox and start working with these folks to make it happen.
Yeah, sure. Maybe if I could just chip in on that one. Yeah, I've actually been so impressed by how the Lithuanian government is thinking about this. I really is a beacon, I think, in Europe. So if I was a startup, I would be thinking about coming here. And hearing you talk about the opportunities that the technology presents, it's really forward thinking, it's really progressive, and it's exactly the kind of attitude we need from policymakers. So just a plug for that as well to come to Lithuania and realise the opportunities.
Come to Lithuania.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Simon, maybe. If you could.
You should always come to Lithuania because it's nice to be here. No, but seriously, I would like a startup that is getting into this field to be a little bit hesitant and be very aware that there's already a lot of things happening, and really don't jump in blindly at this moment. Go and talk to, some experts, maybe not me, but other ones here on stage, to find out is it really something different that I'm going to do? And am I really adding value to a system? And am I not just the fifth or the sixth doing the same thing? Because a lot is already happening. And by talking to experts that know the field, you might get an even better idea, because we still need very good ideas. And then if you have this idea and experts say, yes, go for it, look for investors, look for a favorable public policy place where you can go and where you can start doing your job.
Yeah, anyone or? Oh,
So let me finish my points of today with a joke. For us, it's very hard to think about, for example, the Dutch perspective. Netherlands are calculating that this sector could bring 9 billion euros of additional income to the economy. So that's a huge amount. It's even hard to comprehend for us Lithuanians. Like 30 years ago, we would go to the shop and there were 2 types of sausages on the shelves. Yeah, we had like some people who are cautious about black olives. Now we are living like it's 30 years from then, and we are discussing, of course, products that are novel in the whole European Union. And of course, there is a lot of reluctance. There are a lot of discussions. There are a lot of questions unanswered. But I would say that all these novel foods are about choice. It's an option. It's not something that you must eat. And of course, we will have a lot of mandatory changes in the legal environment regarding agriculture, but that are not associated with novel foods. We will have, Vytautas already mentioned, for example, CO2 emissions, animal welfare issues, that will definitely change agriculture as well. But this is an option, so it is worth to explore.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a really great point to wrap up our session. So we mentioned some of the really important features and some considerations about novel food. We talked a little bit about the ethical considerations, some environmental impact, about the importance of startups. Actually we didn't mention a little bit about the labeling issue, which is actually also important one, but the Vice Minister's point about creating some alternative really resembles the starting point of Maurice, that you mentioned, which is about alternative proteins. So we are creating the possibility to choose from. So I would like to thank you all the panelists and for your optimism, so for your elaborated ideas, and I hope those ideas will be somehow executed in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.